As it's a day of love, I thought I'd try and find something to read in relation to the Aesir. And the first thing that came to my mind was the story of Skadi and Njord. Now, it's not perhaps the most romantic love story, but perhaps it's love as perceived by the Aesir. So I'm going to read it from the Helen Guerber book, and you can take of it what you will, and we'll go from there. Skadi, goddess of winter. Shortly after Idun's return from Thrymheim and Thias's death within the bounds of Asgard, the assembled gods were greatly surprised and dismayed to see Skadi, the giant's daughter, appear one day in their midst to demand satisfaction for her father's death. Although the daughter of an ugly old Hrimthurs, Skadi, the goddess of winter, was very beautiful indeed, in her silvery armour, with her glittering spear, sharp-pointed arrows, short white hunting dress, white fur leggings, and broad snowshoes. And the gods could not but recognise the justice of her claim. Wherefore they offered the usual fine in atonement. Skadi, however, was so angry that she at first refused this compromise and sternly demanded a life for a life, until Loki, wishing to appease her wrath and thinking that if he could only make her cold lips relax in a smile, the rest would be easy, he began to play all manner of pranks. Fastening a goat to himself by an invisible cord, he went through a series of antics which were reproduced by the goat, and the sight was so grotesque that all the gods fairly shouted with merriment, and even Skadi was forced to smile. Taking advantage of this softened mood, the gods pointed to the firmament where her father's eyes glowed like radiant stars in the northern hemisphere. They told her they had placed them there to show him all honour, and finally added that she might select as husband any of the gods present at the assembly, providing she were content to judge of their attractions by their naked feet. Blindfolded, so that she could only see the feet of the gods standing in a circle around her, Skadi looked about her, and her gaze fell upon a pair of beautifully formed feet. She felt sure they must belong to Balder, the god of light, whose bright face had charmed her, and she designated that owner as her choice. When the bandage was removed, however, she discovered to her chagrin that she had chosen Njord, to whom her troth was plighted. But notwithstanding her disappointment, she spent a happy honeymoon in Asgard, where all seemed to delight in doing her honour. After this, Njord took his bride home to Noatun, where the monotonous sound of the waves, the shrieking of the gulls, and the cries of the seals so disturbed Skadi's slumbers that she finally declared it was quite impossible for her to remain there, and she implored her husband to take her back to her native Thrymheim. Njord, anxious to please his new wife, consented to take her to Thrymheim and to dwell there with her 9 nights out of every 12, providing she would spend the remaining 3 with him at Noatun. But when he reached the mountain region, the coughing of the wind in the pines, the thunder of the avalanches, the cracking of the ice, the roar of the waterfalls, and the howling of the wolves appeared to him as unbearable as the sound of the sea had seemed to his wife, and he could not but rejoice each time when his period of exile was ended and he found himself again at Noatun. For some time, Njord and Skadi, who are the personifications of summer and winter, alternated thus, the wife spending the 3 short summer months by the sea, and he reluctantly remaining with her in Framheim during the 9 long winter months. But, concluding at last that their tastes would never agree, they decided to part forever, and returned to their respective homes, where each could follow the occupations which custom had endeared to them. Skadi now resumed her wonted pastime of hunting, leaving her realm again only to marry the semi-historical Odin, to whom she bore a son called Sæming, the first king of Norway, and the supposed founder of the royal race which long ruled that country. According to other accounts, however, Skadi eventually married Ulla, the winter god. As Skadi was a skillful marksman, she is represented with bow and arrow, and as the goddess of the chase, she is generally accompanied by one of the wolf-like Eskimo dogs so common in the north. Skadi was invoked by hunters and by winter travellers whose sleighs she would guide over the snow and ice, thus helping them to reach their destination in safety. Skadi's anger against the gods who had slain her father, the storm giant, is an emblem of the unbending rigidity of the ice-enveloped earth, which, softened at last by the frolicsome play of Loki, smiles and permits the embrace of Njord. His love, however, cannot hold her for more than 3 months of the year, typified in the myth by nights, as she is always secretly longing for the wintry storms and for her wonted activities among the mountains.